Hey guys, I am Game Advisor and welcome back to another Icarus update video. Today we're going to be going over the week 52 and 53 update. The reason we're doing both is because unfortunately we had some real life stuff come up and we were unable to make sure that we made that post for you guys. So today we're going to be covering both portions, the week 52 and 53 update, talking about our opinions on them and just kind of covering what exactly they added in case you happen to have missed anything. If you'd like to skip ahead to the week 53 point, there should be a marker on the video timeline that you're welcome to skip to. Either way, let's jump in and start out with the week 52 update. Now, the week 52 update brings us a couple of important new features to the game. The first and foremost one being a change to open world quests. This really isn't that big of a deal at the end of the day because they're still pretty much kill collect quests, very simplistic, but they have gone ahead and changed the rewards based on your prospect difficulty now, as well as made it so that hunts, caches, and scan missions have more variety to them. This is great for players who were enjoying these or just players who weren't enjoying these but still were doing them anyways for leveling up character purposes or just because they wanted the rewards. Either way, they should be at least a little bit better and more bearable to do, but it's not that big of a change. Next up is the wooden fortifications. This is probably the biggest change in this update, as the wooden fortifications are essentially a whole new building item that you can build within Icarus. If you've ever played Rust, these are essentially the same thing that they have in Rust, but made to handle animals and made for the Icarus world environment. Some important things to note with these is that they are very tall, you can build catwalks on them, and they are great for defending your base from just about any animal outside of bosses, of course. They're going to cost you some wood, some iron or iron nails, and some rope. They're very cheap to make and only require the base tier 1 workbench to make, but they're found inside the tier 2 blueprint tree. The walls will also not take any environmental damage, so you will not have to worry about constantly repairing them, as I know that would be a stressful thing to deal with. A lot of players opted out of choosing to build a large wall around their base because of that environmental damage, so thankfully they've taken that out. Again, these aren't really that impactful to your everyday gameplay, but if you're going to be facing a horde of animals, these will be very useful to have, as you could put a small ring down, or even a couple rings down with some spikes on them and some catwalks, and have a good defensible position if there's no other place nearby for you to use. They also deal damage to the animals when they attack the spike side of the wall, so that's another good thing for you. I think these will mostly be useful whenever you're doing a geyser for exotics, or whenever you're fighting a horde of enemies for some mission, say like the little polar bear one where tons of baby polar bears rush at you. Either way, it's a great addition to the game, and I'm excited to see how it will impact the game in the future based on the DLC that we'll see eventually, and based on the new missions they're going to implement over time. It's also worth mentioning that there are 4 things you'll need to research in the tier 2 blueprint tree to get all the stuff related to these fortifications. Now, they've also gone ahead and added a new mission, which is great, so if that's something you're interested in, you're more than welcome to go play it, but I'm assuming most of you who do care about the mission have already done it, so we're not really going to waste our time too much here. Just know that you are going to have to kill some stuff, and you are going to have to craft a few tonics, which are the new tonics that were added in the patch before week 52. Again, nothing crazy here, nice to have, but not that big of a change. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip the changelog since we have a lot to cover today, and I will just say if you guys want to check this out for yourself, there is some valuable information, so do feel free to go ahead and read all of this down here. Some things like the buffalo mount getting a speed increase and some other different variety of things being changed, but either way, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the week 53 update for those of you who are interested in it. Alrighty, now for the week 53 update. This update is their 1-year anniversary update, which is pretty cool if I'm being honest. I mean, to think about the fact that this game has now been out for a full year and we've been covering the game for that long is pretty awesome. I mean, our channel has only really been relevant and around for maybe a couple of years. So for us, this game has been huge. And I just want to say a thank you to the Icarus dev team for even making the game. And a thank you for all of you guys who have been sticking around and watching us for so long, whether it be on Icarus or it be on other survival games. Thank you just for watching and supporting us. I really do appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and actually talk about what they've added. Now, the big change with this update is the big data decentralization and migration. So let me just go ahead and break this down for you because reading through all this text is a nightmare. All this means is that instead of having all your game information stored on the cloud, or in other words, on their servers, all you're going to have now is have your information stored on your own computer. This leaves room for a number of different things. 1, you can now be on multiple missions at the same time. 2, some people are going to figure out how to change things like your level and your current currencies and things like that, depending on which portions of the information have been moved to your direct computer. But either way, this is going to make it very easy for people to find new ways to cheat in the game. So if that's something you're interested in, since it is a PvE game, that is going to be a thing. And just to go ahead and show you guys how bad this is, we'll just say that we did find a dupe within the game on accident, and we will do our best to inform the devs of it. And I'm not going to go ahead and make that public here, but there is currently a duping mechanism in the game that allows you to do pretty much any workshop item you want as many times as you want. Either way, there's going to be some bugs and issues with this whole data decentralization thing, as it changes a lot on the back end. One of the more important changes here, which is kind of a con for some players that like to play in multiplayer, is the fact that if you want to play a game with a friend, whoever starts the mission must be on at all times, unless you want to host a dedicated server, which is an option now. That can be a good thing too. Now, what this means is basically if you start your mission and you have a friend who wants to join, they're more than welcome to. However, if you are the host and you log off, he will be forced out and no longer be able to rejoin that mission. Now, you can reclaim the stuff that your character is wearing, but if, let's say, you have something that you've placed down or something not inside your inventory and your friend does not want to get back on or is unable to, you will not be able to recover those items. So just keep in mind, whenever joining a friend's mission, there is a chance you will lose anything that you've placed down onto the ground unless you use the game's new insurance system. Basically what this does is it makes it so that within 5 days of losing any items on a mission, you'll be able to get all of the things you brought in with you back. It does cost 100 Ren and 25 exotics. This isn't really a huge deal, but waiting 5 days is kind of an annoyance. So if you want to get those exotic items back and you were playing on, say, hardcore, or you were playing on with a friend, and then you were no longer able to get back in, you're going to have to wait 5 days, assuming you paid the insurance cost ahead of time. Now, there are still a lot of changes to talk about with this whole data decentralization thing and how it's going to affect players. One of the new changes that are coming along with this is the fact that you can no longer lose a character. If you're playing on hardcore or die by yourself, yeah, you might lose anything you were carrying on you if you didn't have it insured, but at the end of the day, your character will not be gone. You'll still have your character, they'll still be whatever level they were, you can still play different missions with them, and basically this is going to make the game a little bit more casual friendly. Again, this is only going to affect the super hardcore players, which if you really want to, and you're playing on hardcore and die, you can choose just never to play the character again. But if you're playing on hardcore now, you will not forcibly be made to lose your character. You'll instead just no longer be able to resurrect, but since you can play on multiple missions at the same time, you will not lose that character. The character can still be played, you're just losing any exotics you brought in. Personally, I think this is great, as most players did not like the hardcore mechanic where you actually permanently lost your character. So I'm glad they added this, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you guys if you think this is a pro or a con. I do think about 90% of the player base is going to enjoy it, and about the 10% of players who are playing every mission on hardcore are not. Either way, it's a change that I think most of the new players coming into the game with future DLCs and people returning to the game after long breaks are going to appreciate. Now, let's talk about some very important gameplay changes they've added with this update. First up is the fact that you now have a new item called an Orbital exchange interface that you can craft inside the tier 2 part of your research tree. When you craft this on the tier 1 bench, it will allow you to basically place down this little board that lets you summon in a drop pod that you can then put exotics inside of and send up to space. This means there's no longer a hard limit to how many exotics you can get per mission based on how much you can carry. So if you want to go grind out thousands of exotics and get every single exotic possible on a certain mission or on a map, more power to you. Will a lot of players use this? Probably not, but it is a welcome change. There's not really a downside I see to this. I think most people are going to enjoy it, as it gives you a way to secure exotics without having to go back to your dropship if you're, say, on the opposite side of the map. I also think this could be paving the way, and I'm just saying maybe, there's no confirmation, to have some kind of drop ship come in that you can then board and leave the mission ahead of time and not have to walk back. I think that would be great to add. They just need to make it like a tier 4, highest tier, very expensive to make. But for players who don't want to have to walk all the way back to their ship on a mission that takes them to the opposite side of the map, it'll be a welcome change. Next up are some smaller ones. We have the fact that mission rewards are no longer mailed to you. As soon as you complete the mission, you'll instantly receive it. So they've kind of just removed that whole process of opening your mail and retrieving it because it was kind of pointless in the first place. Next up, we have the fact that characters are no longer locked to missions, as we've talked about before. This means you'll be able to be on multiple missions at the same time on one character. Very useful. Just keep in mind, if you bring in exotics with you, you will not be able to use those exotics on 2 different missions at the same time. Only one mission can actually have their exotics on them. So if, say, you start mission A, bring in all your exotic armor, and then want to go do mission B, you can do mission B. You just won't be able to bring in that exotic armor with you since it's currently on mission A. Either way, it's a cool change, a welcome change, and I don't think anybody's going to complain about it. We've already talked about the insurance change, which again is now only going to insure your items since you are no longer able to lose your character, but you will have to wait 5 days in real time to get those items back if you insure them and then lose them. This is really only going to affect hardcore players if I'm being honest, but hey, it's still available if you want it. I will also say the fact that you have to wait 5 real-time days is kind of just dumb to me. Like, why? There's no good reason for it. It's just, hey, you need to wait. It's not like Tarkov where you can use that gear to go fight another player. It's just you use the gear to be able to continue doing missions. I guess it adds a little bit more of a sense of penalty, but I personally think the 5 real-time days should just be removed. This is a mechanic for mechanic's sake and not a mechanic for fun's sake. So I would love to see this just completely ripped out of the game and changed to, oh, you've insured your items? Oh, you want to take them out of the mission? Okay, here you go. You can just have them all back. There's no extra steps where you now have to wait 5 days before you can get your exotics and want to play the game again. I think this is kind of just dumb if I'm being completely honest with you, and I would love to see this just fully removed from the game and made so that you instantly get your stuff back, unless there's some reason I'm not thinking of that would make this a bad thing to do. And the last change, which is somewhat important, I'll be honest, and honestly a kind of welcome change in my opinion, is the fact that your workshop items will now cost 10 Ren to repair. This is good and bad. I think this is good because people tend to have a lot of Ren by the time they hit endgame, and there's really nothing to spend it on that's meaningful. This gives you another way to consume that Ren and makes you get punished for constantly just using overpowered exotics every single time. It's also very cheap, so it's not that impactful, but it is nice to see that they're adding this into the game. I personally like it, but let me know what you guys think because I think some of you are going to absolutely hate this mechanic as it will be really annoying early on in your playthrough. They have also made it so that you can repair your items at the tier 3 repair bench, which is great and all, but again, I don't think this is going to be a big deal. You can still just repair them there like you would be able to in the workshop if you were not on a mission, but hey, it's nice to have. You can still repair them if you don't want to leave the mission yet and you want to build that tier 3 workbench. Next, they talk about their dedicated servers, which I'm not going to go into depth here. I'm just basically going to explain to you the fact that, hey, if you want to play with friends, but you don't want to have to be on when they want to play, you can make a dedicated server now where essentially anybody can join that knows the information to that server at any point in time. This works just like any other dedicated server for any other game. Cool to have, not that big of a deal for me personally, but some of you might really enjoy this. Following that, they go ahead and talk about all the different changes they've made to the game over time, which if you guys haven't been around for a while, I'm just going to very quickly go ahead and glance over what they've changed over the last year of Icarus. Basically, we got open world mode, which is more or less an outpost mode with no respawning resources and allows you to be on any map you want for any amount of time. You've got rideable mounts, which are cool, but not that useful. Dynamic missions, which are just slightly more interesting missions. An in-game timer change where instead of, actually counting down in real life time, they now count down in-game time, so you don't have to worry about going on vacation and losing your character. That was a great one. And world bosses. World bosses were a much desired feature for the game, and there have been a lot of bosses added. Now, do keep in mind, there's a whole bunch of other stuff they've added over time. There's new talents, we've got a whole bunch of new different types of stat changes. You've got new rewards, you've got 89 new missions. Like there's a lot they have added in the last year. Let's be real here. But at the end of the day, the game still has some issues, but I do think it is in a much better place than it was a year ago. Had they released the game in this state right here and now for the first time, I think Icarus would have a lot more than a few thousand players playing it. It would probably be arguably one of the most popular survival games on the market today. And that's not to say it's not popular, just that it's not quite as popular as some of its bigger competitors. Now, with all that being said, they do go and talk a little bit about how they feel about their game and some stuff at the bottom, and they do have some information in the changelog, but this video is going on long enough, so I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Just know that, hey, if you guys have been enjoying Icarus or you haven't played it in a long time, now is a great time to come back and give it another try. Yes, it still is primarily the same gameplay loop, but there is a lot more to experience. A lot of improvements have been made, and personally, as of playing today, when I'm playing on my own PC and not on their servers, I saw a huge performance increase. So let me know if you guys saw that too. The performance increase seems to be extremely noticeable for me. I was hitting like 60 frames on high graphics or ultra, where beforehand I was only hitting sometimes as little as like 30. That's a massive difference. So if you did have trouble running the game before, go give it another try. You might actually find that it runs way smoother and you do enjoy it, as a lot of the mechanics have changed to be more friendly to newer players. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I want to give a big shout out to our Platinum Above channel members, which you can check out the program for that down below if you hit the join button underneath this video. And I want to give a shout out to Caustic FPV, Jonathan S, and Jim Phillips. Thank you guys for supporting us. We really do appreciate it. And thank you all so much once again for watching all of our update videos for the last year. It has been a great ride, and we are excited to see what Icarus has for us in the future. So with all that being said, I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.